Hi everyone, this is Podcasa Bonita, and I'm Rachel, a fake gamer girl.
And guess what? I'm Shirley, the real, true kawaii desu gamer girl. Follow my TikTok and my streams and shit. I'll sell my bathwater eventually. Just kidding. I'm bad at games. But you know what game I'm actually somewhat decent at? The topic of this podcast today. We're actually going to do the podcast that we've been hinting at for probably 3 years at this point.
We are going to be reviewing The Stick of Truth, the game that was so successful that it spawned a show that lasted for 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. No, this actually isn't the very first installment of a South Park game ever. It's just the first good installment ever of a South Park. Well, okay, for a console. I know there's a Scott Tenorman game, but I don't really know what I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm a fake gamer girl.
No, I said that.
Well, I'm a poser. Leave me alone. Let me lick my controller and act sexy for the internet. No, so, besides that, there have been other previous games that, we don't care about because Matt and Dre didn't care about them. They've had, cheap Nintendo 64 or GameCube games, I think. I think there was, a Nintendo 64, a couple of them. But, they were just basically, the rights were just kind of given freely to whatever company wanted to produce that game, and Matt and Trey didn't really have any sort of involvement in those. So this is the first time that they actually personally dipped their own toes into the world of gaming and gave us the Stick of Truth.
Honestly, I would love to do game reviews of all the shitty South Park games and be 100% serious about it.
Okay, I may be depressed and hate myself, but, I don't hate myself that much, Rachel. I don't have standards. But, why make them worse?
I guess I'm just a masochist. Alright, do you want to get started with the story overview of The Stick of Truth?
Yes, tell us about the general story of The Stick of Truth.
So The Stick of Truth allows you to play as the new kid in the game, so it very much feels like you are living in the town. You're interacting with the characters. It's a very cool immersion of the South Park fans into the show.
What? Big deal. There have already been self-inserts in South Park since the 4th grade. Since this show began.
Okay.
We finally have a legitimate self-insert, though. So.
True. This is the one that Matt and Trey are okay with.
Unless you're a woman, you only get to play as a supposed male kid in this game.
Yeah, speaking of that supposedly male kid, your name is just New Kid, and Carbon calls you douchebag throughout the entire game because Trey said that he hates when characters speak for him during video games, so they wanted to avoid that. And also, he's kind of mute, so that's how they avoided that problem. So basically, the new kid moves to town because his parents are running from something, and they want a quiet mountain town where nothing bad ever happens, so they chose the wrong town. And so they kind of move in as the boys are playing this medieval Game of Thrones-esque game, where half of them are under Cartman at the Kingdom of Koopa Keep, and the other half are under Kyle, who are all the elves, and they have this Stick of Truth, which supposedly controls the universe, and they kind of fight back and forth. And I actually love the Stick of Truth.
South Park fashion. In true South Park fashion, of course, there is a good heap of satirical racism between the elves and the wizards.
Yes, and I absolutely love the dramatic and the ridiculousness of it, because it does feel very, fantasy-like. It's just kids dressing up and running around, but I think that they did really a great job of, pretending and making it how... to kids, it does feel really very real to them, and so you kind of get to feel that along with them.
Yeah, there's, we don't want to, start off going through every single detail, but it's really good to just give a general overview on what you're getting into. What I like to talk about with this game is how it really has very unique mechanics, especially when it's an RPG, but it's a turn-based style, which I'm really a fake gamer girl here. I barely know that terminology, but like I'm not a combat style person at all. So the fact that I can play this game makes me really happy because it's very similar combat wise to games like Pokemon or Paper Mario, the OG Paper Mario, and in that there's a lot of strategy. Not saying that like any other game doesn't have any strategy, but the gameplay itself is very strategy based, and I don't know. I really liked that about it. It gives one. I think it helps with the actual visuals. Trying to have close combat, I think, in this style of game, while still maintaining South Park's style, would be a little bit difficult and just kind of messy. And plus, I think with the general theme, with it being, kind of dunces and douchebags, it's kind of it's very fitting for the game to have that turn-based combat style. So I really appreciate it. I think it's really fun. I like that you get to strategize, and it's not just a point and click. There's legitimate like things that you have to think about with this game. It's not just hitting random buttons like I do when I play Super Smash Brothers.
I know even less about like video games and mechanics than Shirley does. And I only made it about halfway through this game. But I will say, I appreciated that, the combat style and the way you move around the world, it was very simple to me and very easy to learn, which I appreciated because I'm not a super big video game player. I only bought this and played this because I like South Park, and I really only cared about the story, which is why I stopped halfway through and then just went online and looked at all the cutscenes.
Well, it's funny. I had known about the game for so long. I had only kind of, I guess, recently played the game for myself. But my sister, she is really good at video games. So she had it. I bought it for her when it first came out for the PC. So I've done I've done a little bit on the PC, but most recently, it's funny, I actually played the sequel game for myself first before this one. And we're going to have our own episode about the fractured butthole, but for now, we got to focus on the elder kid. And yeah, I really love this game. I think it's can involve any South Park fan. Its combat style isn't like necessarily easy. I wouldn't say like it takes strategy, but it's if somebody who's inept at video games like I am can play it and get through it. I've played it through like probably 3 times at this point. I have to give props where it's due. It's not just walking from one place, starting a fight. You have to do a lot of like Mario-esque problem solving.
Yeah, I agree. I really enjoyed the game, and I believe that this is a popular opinion because, if I'm not mistaken, this game was pretty positively reviewed. Isn't that true?
It was. It was more positively reviewed by the fans than its own creators. So
Yeah, Matt and Trey, they kind of can be hard on themselves, but I really love this game, especially for like their first time making a game. It's just, for me, it felt very obvious. One, that they cared so much about like the jokes and the story. They didn't just throw that aside, and it really shows. And also, you can tell that Matt and Trey both love games, and that really comes through.
You can see a lot of other games like inspiration. Like I mentioned before, Paper Mario. They even said, I think in an interview, very similar to Paper Mario. Earthbound, that's another one that was kind of influenced this game. So I really think really any fan of South Park can enjoy it. At least enjoy like the story aspect and the jokes, like everything. It feels like like a good episode of South Park. Like, damn, how long has it been since one of those, right?
I know, right?
Just kidding. I like a couple of them. I like a couple of the newer ones. They're not all bad. Most of them are, but they're not all bad.
All right, let's continue before this turns into a different type of video.
I know. Shirley screams at a non-existent audience for 20 minutes.
That's just our regular podcast, except
that's our episode podcast.
Yeah, except it's both of us yelling.
This is us actually really genuinely enjoying everything about this game. We're going to talk a little bit more about like critiques and everything and like issues that the game had towards the end. But like our personal experience, I really, really enjoy this game. I think it's a lot of fun and it makes me laugh at the same time that I'm like feeling challenged, and it's super immersive. Any South Park fan, there are so many Easter eggs in this game.
Agree. So now that we're talking about the general reception of it, I found a pretty funny website that has parents reviewing the Stick of Truth, and I thought that a few of them were pretty funny, so I thought we could read them.
Read it. Go for it, dude.
Okay, the very first one has 5 stars, and it says good but inappropriate. Who would have thought? And it says, it's a great game, funny, relatable, somewhat easy, with just enough challenge. However, with alien rape scenes, abortion scenes, sex toys, climbing inside a man's anus to find a variety of things, and general things I wouldn't want to see, it is extremely inappropriate. I love this review, just because...
Check the back of the box, my dude. You gotta check for that little M rating.
Yeah. I love this review, one, because he's like, it's on a parent website, but it's like, he's not even like, or he or she, I don't know what the gender is, but they're not even concerned about like this being inappropriate for kids. They're just like, this is stuff I don't want to see. Why are you playing a South Park game?
Why are you? I don't think people should really be surprised. You know what's funny though? I've heard a couple of stories of reviews for like parents getting this game for their kids and being shocked by what they're seeing. Similarly, how parents taking their kids to see the South Park movie in theaters shock the shit out of them because they just see cute-ish little cartoon characters. And they're like, oh yeah, this is fine. I don't know how at this point you're not aware of South Park. They are kind of cultural icons, but you know, it does happen. Wow, am I surprised that there are inattentive parents? No.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of parents taking their kids to see the South Park movie in 99, I can kind of forgive because South Park was relatively new on the scene. And, I mean, it was controversial, but at this point, like, it's over 20 years of South Park. Everyone knows that South Park is, like, a horribly offensive show. I don't know what you're doing. Alright, so another review I really, really loved was another one that was 5 stars, rated ages 14 and up, and it said, offensive but good if your mind is already warped. You'll get a kick out of this, I recommend. And I love this one just because it's like, yeah, if you like this, there's already no hope for you. Just go for it.
To me, it's so funny. I've played through this game like 3 times at this point, and I don't even like flinch. There's an entire ass scene where you fight the underpants gnomes. You're shrunken down to their tiny little size and fight on your parents' bed while they have sex. And you have to dodge your father's testicles. And, like, it doesn't even faze me anymore. There will be, like, graphic testicles, like, flying towards the screen. It's like, ooh, wow, my mana's up pretty high. I should go ahead and use, like, an attack at this point.
Alright, and the last review I'm going to read is another one I loved because it's basically me writing this. And it's rated 2 stars for ages 13 and up, and it just says, didn't get that far. I just love that. One, because I also, like, stopped halfway through. Not because it's a bad game, but I just love that this person just didn't finish it and is, like, trying to blame the game for that. Alright, I can include the link to this page in the description below if you want to go check it out, but I thought a few of them were really, really tickled my funny bone, so I thought we'd read them on here.
We enjoy clueless parents. So now that we've got, like, the general public's perception of the game, it was really positive. Like, it had really good reviews for good reason. And, you know, I think there's a lot in the game that attests to it. So we'll just go a little bit further into the story and the gameplay in general. I know, of course, we've just been saying, like, I like this game. They fart and it makes me laugh. And we've definitely talked about the game mechanics, but the story itself is another really great reason to play this game, or at least just watch the cutscenes. I know that there's kind of like a movie sort of setup on YouTube that's just all the cutscenes kind of strung together, but there's a lot of different elements to this game. There's a lot.
And I read somewhere that Matt and Trey originally had so much more they wanted to include, but they had to kind of cut it down, and so that's why a bunch of, like, new materials in the Fractured Butthole.
Yeah, there really is. We won't, like, do too much comparison until we actually review the Fractured Butthole. Like, we just want this to be, like, its own episode, because the thing is, the game totally stands on its own. I had played the Fractured Butthole before Stick of Truth, and though I generally prefer the Fractured Butthole, Stick of Truth to me stands completely on its own. You don't have to play one or the other. You don't have to play both to get enjoyment out of them. The mechanics are very similar, but again, there are general improvements in the second game, but I personally don't find too much wrong with this game, except for one part that literally, if I have to give a critique to this game, the part that pissed me off the most was the scene I think that a lot of people had troubles with. So my biggest critique of this game are the tutorials. And so the setup of the tutorials are, you know, a character this will primarily happen for, like, your fart moves, your mana moves. You know, these are extremely powerful. You have to use, like, potions and stuff like that to build up your mana, and they're special fart attacks. For lack of a better term, that's what they are. Well, for each new attack that you learn, you have a little animation, and a certain character will show you that specific attack. It starts off with Cartman showing you 2 of them, and then Randy shows you the Sneaky Squeaker, and finally Terrence and Philip will show you Dragon Shout. Or no, Nagasaki. That's it. Those are the names. But the issue isn't actually the moves themselves, it's how they try and teach you. And I remember the only part that I got stumped on in this whole fucking game was the goddamn tutorial with Randy. So my biggest issue was they had animations of what you were supposed to do with your analog stick during that tutorial. And turns out they're fucking wrong. They're not actually the controls that you have to do in order to properly execute the move. And the thing is, if you don't get the tutorial right, you cannot progress at all. You can't progress in the game whatsoever. No, I was stuck with the Cartman ones aren't really bad. Randy's is the worst, and I found out I wasn't alone because I got stuck trying to do the fucking Sneaky Squeaker for like 20 minutes, and it just kept repeating the same dialogue over and over again. I was doing exactly what the animation was telling me, so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna put my tail between my legs and go to YouTube, and I can't find the video anymore. Somebody had a video that said, like, how to beat the hardest part in the Stick of Truth. And yeah, turns out you just held the analog stick to the left That was it. It had nothing to do with the animation that was on the screen at all. But the comments were filled with very, very similar frustrations as my own.
Very typical of Randy to ruin things for us.
Oh, I know. And it was really just Randy. It was just Randy. But the thing is, I will give credit where credit's due. Randy's actually really funny. In this game, he's still an asshole, but at least he's funny. Where did this energy go when they're actually making the show?
Well, that's because this was released like all the way back in like season 17. That was before Randy was like Randy, how he is now.
That is true. God, this game is fucking.
That was even before Lord. That's how long ago this was.
Oh God, this was so. And come to think about it, you can kind of tell how old this game was because it was originally released. It released on a couple different consoles. At the time, it was on Xbox 360, I think. No, it was probably the Xbox One. I don't fucking know. My boyfriend's an Xbox guy. I'm not a guy, but I'm also not an Xbox person. But it also was released on the PS3, which now I'm thinking about it, that console's old as shit now. Because the PS4 is now old as shit, according to, like, the gaming world. But, and it was also released on PC. Now, I will say there are different experiences with the game, based on what console you played it on. Generally, for most people, the story was really consistent. Everybody still really liked the story. But the PC, which I had gotten for my sister originally, it was kind of lagging. The quality suffered greatly when you compare it to having a home console. Like, I played it on the Switch, which was really easy and wonderful and great. PC, though...
Alright, so as far as our personal opinions of the game, I personally loved it, not because of, like, it being a video game, it's just I loved that it was a new way to interact with the story, the jokes were really good, and I appreciated that the characters were all very in character, and there were little nods to their character in the way they dress, in the way they attack, things like that. I love, like, for example, that... Like, Stan is a warrior, and one of his attacks is that he brings his dog out. Like, then Princess Kenny makes it come back, oh
my God, not talk to Princess Kenny at this point. Oh, she's like one of the best sidekicks that you could have. I would love to like take a moment to like talk about each art general, like the characters and everything, if we could do that. Like Stan's and Kyle's and Cartman's like general attacks, like who's our favorite character to play with?
Yeah, you can probably do a little bit more of that since you know more about it, since you played it more than me. But in general, I just liked the story progression. Like, it makes sense that Stan would side with Kyle over Cartman, blah, blah, blah. They explain why Kenny is on Cartman's side when he maybe typically wouldn't be. And then the whole thing where Cartman kicks Clyde out at the beginning, that actually has consequences later. It's not just a thoughtless plot point. I always appreciated the high level of storytelling in South Park, and I think that continues in this game.
Oh, it most definitely does continue in this game, where it's kind of like its own movie. You're just participating directly into it. At no point do I feel like the story like suffers, and I feel it really attests to their actual writing skills, and they've also had a lot of time to work on it. But I really think some of the best storytelling elements that South Park is known for are found in this game, and you can totally enjoy the game without being a fan of South Park. But this game was made with South Park fans in mind. There are so many Easter eggs. You can go in each boy's closets and see like little nods to previous episodes. There are tons of side quests. This is definitely a game where you could finish like the general story, I'd say, in maybe like a day or two of gameplay. But the side quests will give a lot of like give this game a lot of its mass. You know, there's a lot to do. in this game that isn't necessarily like directed towards the main story, which is kind of a conflict within a conflict. You have the elves versus the wizards, but then you also have like the alien Taco Bell, let's blow up South Park.
You know what's funny is that I actually was like thinking so much about like the kids subplot that I like totally forgot that there were Nazi zombies in this game.
Yeah, there are, in which, you know what, that's kind of a testament to how well written this game is, because the kids are still kids. It's so funny because they are so invested in their own, like, literally just a wooden stick, that they're pretty much oblivious to, like, the actual world dangers of Nazi zombies in this game, and, a government agency attempting to blow up South Park to cover up an alien invasion. So that's like really fun. It's very in character of the boys to be way more focused on their own troubles than the larger picture.
Yeah, and also I loved it because some of my favorite South Park episodes involve like the kids kind of being in their own little world, and then they accidentally stumble across a situation where they are way in over their heads.
Exactly. Really, it's a great game. Mostly that most South Park fans, I think, are going, even whether they're casual or not. I think they'll get a lot of enjoyment just from the story alone. You may not have to like the game mechanics, but I think it's safe to say that its story is really, really strong.
Yeah, I agree. Do you want to go into more details about each of the characters' attack styles and things like that?
No.
I thought you said you wanted to.
I do. I was like fucking with you.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so you have different types of classes in this game. You have your choice of being a warrior, thief, mage, or Jew. Jew by far is the best class. Not just because I'm a little bit biased, but because like it is actually the best class that you could play as. And that really adds a lot of replay value to this game. That's why I've been able to play it so many times, is because I'm like, ooh, how would it differ if I played as a thief this time instead of a mage or a Jew? So that gives it a lot of replay value. And those same classes are virtually found in the other characters. You know, you have paladins like Butters and bards like Jimmy. So it took me a second to remember who the fuck was the bard in this game. But, and once you... I like that your character itinerary expands the further you go. You have to start out with Butters and Kenny and build your way up, and then you can have virtually any kid as a sidekick. And each of them, they all offer something special. There's not a whole lot of different... There's a lot of different attacks between each character. They're definitely varied, but they're not many are better than the other. There aren't ones that are super weak and ones that are just better than everybody else. I can use any character in any battle and find value to it.
I think one of my favorite attacks is Kenny's, where he like calls on rats or something, and then they like... Yes. I love that one.
That one's super powerful. I like that you can have like additional charms. You can charm your opponents. You can heal and shield. And I think that each character's special talent is very representative of their own character. Like Butters, he's a healing paladin, and he has like his special touch. And every time he heals you, he goes, "There you go, little buddy." And so they each fit the character really well. Kenny just straight up flashes his little prepubescent boy tits at your opponents and charms them. So it's that humor, but it's also not completely arbitrary. There's meaning behind what each character's attack is.
And isn't one of Cartman's attacks where he just like takes out his ass and has like a giant fire blast fart?
Yes, that is. I I didn't use a whole lot of Cartman, mostly because I don't like it. I think that only appears like a couple of times, but it's so funny how their attacks maintain in character. There's Kick the Baby. Kick the Baby is probably like my favorite for Kyle.
That's such a nice callback.
Now that we've complimented the game, we do need to tear it down just like a little bit. We need to take it down a couple of pegs. It is in no way like a perfect game, even though I think it'll reach a very, very wide audience, and it has reached a wide audience. A lot of fans do enjoy this game. Some find it kind of boring and not challenging enough. I think they suck. I think they're wrong, but to each his own, right?
Honestly, if we're being honest, I haven't played this game enough to give it real critiques, which is kind of bad for a game review, but I don't know.
Fake fan over here. We got us a fake fan.
I know. I'm just gonna say that this game is awesome and perfect, and I'm surprised that I can talk with Matt and Trey's balls in my mouth.
Oh my god. This game, man, I don't think we've talked this nicely about any of Matt and Trey's works in a long time, so I feel like we're betraying our own podcast. Like, how dare us dedicated South Park fans actually enjoy a South Park property? That's so out of character for us.
I know, I think it's time our exclusively South Park YouTube channel starts praising South Park.
How dare us? Ugh, this isn't what our subscribers signed up for. They signed up for mediocre content, and by God damn it, we're going to give it to them.
And we continue to do so every 2 weeks.
I think mediocre is a little bit generous there, but But what's not mediocre in finishing is this game. I genuinely enjoy it. Even I've played it after the sequel, and I still think it stands very well on its own. It's still a super fun game. It nods to old 8-bit games with the Canada scene. It's got awesome characters. The story feels like it has a really good progression. It doesn't feel stunted or anything or choppy. It's got a great story that you should expect in like a really big South Park property.
Speaking of the story, to prepare for this game review, I actually went back and watched all of the cutscenes and like wrote down my commentary reactions to all of them, and quickly realized that we weren't going to make that type of video, but I can still maybe post my reactions on my Tumblr and post a link to it.
What's your general reaction?
No, I mean, general, I like it, but it's actually more like very No, I mean, like, what I wrote is like generally, it's like specific what I thought about like
commentary. It's just like 100. It's just like 45 minutes over all the cutscenes, and like halfway through, Rachel just goes, "Yeah, so I like it."
Yeah. But basically, it's like what my thoughts and opinions on like each like separate scene, and so it's kind of long. But if you guys are interested in seeing that, I can post it possibly. But that's kind of all I have to say about the Stick of Truth.
I know I feel kind of not like disappointed. I feel like I let myself down. I can't really say much more other than I really, really like it, and I like that it's available on more consoles now. It is available on the Switch, which is how I played it. So a lot more people can actually play it or watch videos. Let's Players have given rise to people experiencing the games before they always couldn't. Either you had a console and you played it, or you knew nothing about the game. So it's kind of cool that we have an era. I remember watching like a Let's Player way long ago do this game when it first came out. So yeah, it still holds up. It's a fantastic, wonderful game. So next video we'll be going into the Fractured Butthole, which is kind of the sequel game. Making some comparisons, but really for this video we just wanted to focus on this game alone, which it totally deserves, because again, it stands on its own. It's a fun adventure that a lot of people can play and enjoy.
Yeah, again, generally, I like it.
And farts are funny, so, gotta give credit where credit's due.
All right, well, that's all we have, I believe, for our Stick of Truth game review. Expect the Fractured Butthole game review pretty soon, and some more content throughout the summer and beyond.
Yeah, we're with everything going on right now would be the perfect time to either play a little bit of Stick of Truth, or, you could also sit and listen to this podcast, since we're actually making them a little bit more regularly than we were. Again, also, our last episode was a Q&A. We would, again, I'll say this every single video, send us some more questions, because they're really great.
Yeah. We always love questions, comments, or even suggestions about things that you'd like to see, so keep them coming.
Hell, even give us some hate comments. We got to be knocked down a couple pegs.
We've gotten a few, so.
Yeah, but they were both funny, I can't be too mad. They were both a little bit funny.
All right, I think we should go.
I think we've talked their ears off enough. We will figuratively see you next time, and literally talk to each other next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.